If you have anything you want to say to the people before the show, you can say it now.
Okay.
Go Bills.
That's right. It was a great end to a long-standing rivalry between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. We all had to leave our comfy couches to come here and participate in this, but it's all worth it because this is important. This is about the future of our communities, and I am excited to have.
As we all are. Like, we're Bills Mafia. It's one thing that ties the city of good neighbors together.
That's right.
Nothing like the Bills.
Well, I always know.
And chicken wings, of course.
I plead the fifth.
And snowstorms, maybe.
I always know. Even if I'm not invested in the game, I always want to know whether we win or lose because it helps to anticipate how people's moods are going to be.
How the Monday's going to go.
That's a fact. By default, right? I'm
That's
on
right.
by default.
So whenever you're ready, Richard, we are rocking and rolling.
Okay, family. Well, I am here at the community combos for Michael Gaynor, who's running for mayor tomorrow
Twitch
on
has accepted
Tuesday.
the stream.
Read the caption, y'all. Read the caption.
Read the caption. I need you guys to get out and
Comment.
vote Tuesday. Michael Gaynor.
Question.
That's right, November 4th.
November
YouTube
Michael
has
Gaynor.
accepted the stream.
Gaynor for mayor.
Facebook has accepted
We
the
are on
stream.
line E, the Restore Buffalo ballot line. If you are in Legislative District 2, I'd also ask for your support in electing Betty Jean Grant to that county legislative seat. Get her back in there where she can be a voice for our community, for the restoration of the Humboldt Parkway. We need leadership on that legislative council that can make restoration of the parkway a reality.
Tell me when you're ready to go on here.
We are ready to go, Richard. Thank you so much.
Okay, now I am going to reset the timer. And when it counts down, you are officially on the air.
It says, oh, there we go. And 3, 2, 1. Good evening, Buffalo.
Good evening.
Welcome to the first episode of what will for now be called Community Conversations or Community Convos with Michael Gaynor. And I am so grateful this evening to have two amazing guests with us. Just a little bit of background before I introduce them. I tell people that running for mayor has been like one of the greatest privileges of my life. Like I have had an opportunity to go out into the community and engage with people and talk about the things that have been in my head, my inspirations, my ideas, my visions for this city that have been stewing around since the first day that I came to this city, actually 20 years ago yesterday.
Wow.
Yep. So I arrived in Buffalo November 1st, 2005, with my eyes wide open. And every day that I think I know this city, I go out into the community and I meet new people, like Yvette here, that's sitting in front of us, or Carlonda, who has been doing, that I've known for a while, and I've known of her work for a while. But, every day when I walk into people's lives and see that the work that they're engaged with, it just gives me amazing hope for the potential of this city and the potential of what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is really youth training and mentoring as a strategy for stabilizing and strengthening our communities. And, sadly, we've had a couple unfortunate situations here in the city over the last couple of days down on Chippewa, some shootings and stabbings. And ultimately, the question always comes up about community safety. Like, how do we keep people safe? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the topic of tonight. But before I get into that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, the last 3 or 4 months campaigning. And I was telling the story before we went on the air, and I've been zooming around the city in a golf cart for the last couple months. Because when it's a grassroots effort and it's a all grassroots campaign that doesn't have a lot of money, you want to cover as much ground as possible. And, some nights it's really hard to get motivated.
Absolutely.
To go out and, you're only going to talk to 15 or 20 people and, you've got tens of thousands of people and a few weeks that you need to connect with, and you're like, oh, there's got to be a better way to connect with more people. But every night I get home and I reflect on the conversations that I had, and I was like, you know what? That's why I had to go out tonight, because of, the young men that I meet on Liddell Street a few weeks back, or the 4 or 5 young men that I met on Box Street, right? That, they played cool as I was approaching them, and saying, oh yeah, we're registered to vote. We all vote. Yeah. And as soon as I started engaging with them and building some rapport with them, they immediately became captivated by the conversation. And they were like, the things that you're talking about, really matter to us.
Absolutely.
This is a big deal. And then they fess up and they get real, and they're like, you know what?
We're not registered to vote.
We're not registered to vote, but we want to register. And we registered 4 guys on that front porch that night.
That's awesome.
And they all ended up, putting on their Gainer t-shirts and posing for a
I
photo
love
with
it.
me.
I
And
love it.
they were just so excited because, I saw this also when I was campaigning when I was petitioning at TOPS, and so many times people would, immediately look at me and just kind of look through me. And then I'd be like, well, I've been living in this community for 20 years, right over here on Northampton and Jefferson, just a block away from the TOPS, right? And people would immediately be like, what? You've been living here in our neighborhood? And instantly, and then you'd tell them that you're running for office, and almost universally, they would just grab their cart and slide it aside and hear you out.
I love it.
And I think what's most beautiful about all of it is that despite the neglect of our communities over the last decades, and the neglect of the East Side in particular, and despite what happened at that TOPS 3 years ago, and all of the false promises of politicians over the last 3 or 4 decades, people still believe
Absolutely.
and want to know that there are people that care and want to do something about it. And that's why we're all here tonight, because we all have a passion and a commitment to our young people.
Yes.
And you guys make it real every day.
Absolutely.
And I think that's I want to have the story in the background behind this radio show that's going to become, a regular occurrence here, is to really bring people together that are doing similar work. And, I talk about, if I'm lucky enough to become the next mayor of Buffalo, how I really want to invite more people to the table, because what I was experiencing for the last 20 years is always feeling like I was on the outside looking in on decision making, that I didn't feel like the people that were doing the really transformative in the trenches work had access to the decision makers.
Right.
They didn't have a place at the table. They weren't able to share their experiences, their wisdom, all of that knowledge with people that were actually allocating the resources and making the decisions that affect our communities and all of this. So that's what these convos are going to be.
Right.
About bringing those people together from all over the city and being part of a conversation that can hopefully influence our decision makers, if it's me or whether it's Sean Ryan or James Gardner or whoever it happens to be, to help them be more informed about how we make decisions that impact our communities. Because
Absolutely.
every day I tell people, who knows best, right? What, hey, Richard, we got a little bit of static in the back here, but I don't know what it's all about.
As long as it's not on the air, right, it's fine.
Yeah. Do you guys hear it?
I can
I
hear
hear
it, but it
Okay.
could just be our connection, our headphones.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So it might be the way I'm holding it. So I always say, who knows best what the needs of Jefferson Avenue are than the people that live and work on
Residents.
Jefferson.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
And then I can rephrase the same question and say, who knows best the needs of our young people in our community
Young people.
than the young people and the adults
The people
that
that are raising
care
the young
about them,
people.
are raising them, are mentoring them, are training them every day. And I invited you all here tonight because you are the people that are doing that work. And through this greater understanding of what are the needs of our young people. And the only person that's not in this seat right now is a young person. So we'll have to, get them here next time, or maybe have a whole conversation with the youth.
Yes.
That could be another evening. But let's just kick it off and introduce our guest tonight. I'm going to start with Yvette, because Yvette was one of these people that I met campaigning when I was out on the golf cart in Emerson Park. I stumbled across Emerson Park. I've been living and working on Northampton Street at Louisiana, right near Genesee, for now 10 years, and I'd never stumbled into Emerson Park. Like, it's just hidden kind of behind Harvey Austin and back. Is Harvey Austin, that's right there,
Yes.
right? And but when I came across that park, I just felt like we need to have this type of resource in every corner of the city.
Yeah.
Young people learning sports and cheer from other young kids, and parents all hanging out. And, it seems like it's like that whole park's pretty much family run. They run the
Yes.
concession stand.
Absolutely.
And that. So I met Yvette Gaines, and Yvette, I just want to introduce you and have you tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, Michael, as you just stated, my name's Yvette Gaines. I am a community activist. I have been doing community work since 2006 in some form or fashion, whether it be the community center, the community hospital, ECMC. I worked at the health department on Jesse Nash on Broadway and William, Homeland Security. Even though I was inside of a prison, I did casework there with the inmates, and I actually got a few, to commit and admit to me that they won't come back. So that was, even in my job, and my role was to be in security, but to still people, because we had 18 and up. So,
right.
And as of right now, I'm employed with the Erie County District Attorney's Office, and I see more young people there than I care, than I want, that I care to see come through those doors. But I met you, and what I was telling you about and what you were much more interested in is the book that I wrote about my upbringing. It's actually an autobiography called A Love the World Should Know, which I thought most of Buffalo have heard it. Like, nobody wants to hear from me, but lo and behold, I met Michael Gaynor. He hasn't heard about the book. Mm-hmm. So it's so many more people like you that we don't have access to. So these conversations are very important. And from that book, we also started a youth program called The Great 48, because I saw so many young people that read that book, and their story was my story. It was like looking in a mirror. And I don't want young people to be ashamed of what we are, because sometimes we can't control our circumstances, our environment, but we don't have what I teach our kids in the Great 48 program is you don't have to allow what's around you to get in you. Right. And that's how I was saved. And now I reach back to save those kids, that because some of them just need guidance. Some of them just need direction.
Right.
That's all they're missing. And from the book and the program, we created a production company called Gaines Family Production, where we produce our own movies. They're more family oriented. Right now we have a series out on our YouTube channel called Broken Love. We'll be putting out another production in December called Let's Talk About Love. And we use a lot of our children in some of our production, whether it's just production assistant, whatever we can do. And we spend 48 hours with these kids, which is a Saturday and Sunday, teaching them basic life skills.
So important.
Yeah, even like resume writing. And we were talking before the show, we incorporate the parents in that. One mother sat in on our resume writing session. She redid her resume. She said she could get work for months, and within 2 weeks, she had a job. Another coworker of mine, her son's resume, she's like, I don't know what's wrong. I redid his resume. So those are the small things that our youth, they just don't know, and then they give up because no one cares, or no, I can't get a job, so I'm going to go get into trouble. A lot of it's just redirection. We don't have bad children. We have kids that make bad choices.
Yeah.
Right.
So our Great 48 program teaches them basic life skills and the more important things in life. And you give them something to do. I don't know about either of you, but when is the last time you guys seen something built for our youth in the east side of Buffalo?
That's right.
Have you seen a new community center? Have you seen an upgraded YMCA? Anything that gives them something to do.
Or a playground.
Or a
clubhouse.
playground.
A clubhouse where teenagers have a safe place.
Absolutely, because, they'll throw up a swing or a wet pad here or there and, whoop-de-doo. No. They actually need to engage in physical activity that keeps their mind busy. An idle mind is a devil's playground. That's what my grandma always taught me.
Same
So
here.
our program just try to reach back and teach you and encourage them our circumstances does not have to be our outcome. So
Right.
that's what we focus on, the
Right.
Great 48.
That's awesome. Thank
I
you.
can't wait to work with her in her program.
So this is what I'm talking about. Carlonda and Yvette both
Yeah, I never
live
met
here
her.
in Buffalo,
Never met her.
and we have this talent in our communities.
Yes.
So many passionate, committed, determined folks, and I feel like sometimes we just go in our same circles,
That's right.
and we're doing our lives and
In
we're
our
doing our
silos,
work,
right?
and we don't have an opportunity to really reach across the street or the town or the city and connect with other people.
Absolutely.
And when we're a stronger community, we're able to deliver stronger, more vital services to our neighborhood. So
true.
with that introduction, I'll introduce Carlonda
I'm-
next to
I'm listening
tell us a
to
little
her.
bit more.
And I'm like, wow, I started back in like 2010, and I'm a community activist, and just the same thing with the belief that our youth are our future. And at the time, I believe I was like 23, and I had two little kids, and I joined Stop the Violence Coalition. Personally, Markel Fuller came up to me and was like, "Hey, I need you to come be the secretary for the organization." What? I'm like, I don't want to do that. What are you talking about? But I joined on out of respect for him, and I realized that the homicide rate was at its highest. There was youth violence, and I wanted to be. My mindset was, well, I have little kids. I don't want them to grow up in the violence, and I have to be a part of the solution and not the problem.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, well, if I'm, hands-on with them, then I don't have to worry about my son being in a gang or, my daughter being an innocent bystander of a bullet. So that really was why I started on this. And, sometimes you start something, but you never know, what you're really getting involved in
That's
or
right.
where it's going to take you. And then the more I got involved, the more I got to, be involved with families that were they were losing their only child to violence or, being around young people that were in gangs. And like you said, it's not the person, they're not bad, but they just be misguided.
Decisions.
And it just took on from there. So ever since it went from Stop the Violence, I was also outreach worker for SNUG. And then, now I'm Buffalo Peacemaker, and I also work with MVP, Most Valuable Parents. So it's just like activism, just dealing hands-on with youth. How can I be a help? How can I always be a part of the solution? How can I encourage them to be better? And it just kept going. And then next thing you know, I have a community of kids that are like my kids. I treat every child like they're mine,
Right.
pour into them. I always remember how I was as a teenager and the people that poured into me and taught me things. I have my own media company and graphics, but I wouldn't even have that if it wasn't for a Dorothy Hill, Sandy White, Michael Hill pouring into me as a teenager. And that's my livelihood now as an adult. So I always think about that. What was it that kept me on the right path as a teenager? And how can I be that to the youth of today? And so
Right.
that's what keeps me motivated. That's what keeps me going. I now am the program coordinator for the HEAT program, which is Health, Empowerment, Attitude, and Teamwork under Back to Basics. And I have 40 to 60 youth every day, Monday through Friday at 97 Dope that we pour into. We do restorative circles. My goal is to get them to be critical thinkers, to learn something every day, and to stay on the right path. So we all work
awesome.
together. We pour people in that have anything to offer to youth in the community to keep them on the path. And they're paid to be there now through the temporary assistance to needy families. So that makes it even better because, kids want money.
Yeah.
And if they don't get it, they're going to go and get it.
They're gonna get it.
We're trying to teach them how to be safe, how to be smart, and of course, how to be a viable citizen. And Gaynor came over there, and let me just plug you for a minute, Mr. Gaynor here. When I was a outreach worker for SNUG, and I had about 4 gangs. There were probably at least 6 gangs in the program, but 4 gangs that were basically at war with each other. And I had personally knew some of the kids in one gang. I knew some of the kids from the other gang, part of my church, and was trying to mediate that and got them to come in. And of course, they all said, I said, if you put your guns down, I'll give you guys a job. I'm going to find some way to get these kids hired. And there wasn't a lot of options in the cities for programming and youth build, which to this day is still a viable
absolutely.
organization because boys want to work with their hands in construction. And I remember I came to youth build. I didn't know anything really about it or who it was, and that's where I met you. And I'm telling him what we do, and I'm just like, these kids need a job. I got 2 gangs right now, and I have somebody that's Pharaoh Page at the time who was doing a Halloween party and had a building. He said he's willing to take them in, and you were like, oh my God, I love this. And, I'm like, well, how do we get the kids down here to apply? He said, don't worry about it. I'll come to you at your site. That way I can make it convenient, talk to them all at one time. And I mean, he came in, he talked to the kids. You were authentic. He just came and talked to the kids at the program the other day. Same spirit, authentic, passionate, relatable. Because, they come in, they're like, who's this white guy coming here trying to talk to us? He's not from the hood. But when they
And he
hear you
is from the hood.
speak, right, then they find out, wait, you live over there? They heard you speak. They felt your passion and you were an inspiration to them. It's like, okay, we can talk to him. And the connection was there. And I mean, in youth build, I don't know if he knew, but he had like 2 really dangerous set of kids that were out here causing warfare, and they all put their guns down and they were working at youth build and they understood how to work together. And that's what it takes. Somebody just coming in saying, I'm gonna give you the chance, I'm gonna give you the opportunity, and I believe in you and I'm gonna make it happen. And you did that, and that stood out for me. And ever since then, I've just always had the utmost respect for you because I know your heart is in this. And you connected me to other people that were doing things just like he's connecting me to you, Sister Yvette. And those relationships, flourished into things, and it's always been a success for our youth. And you're still doing it. So I respect you for that.
I appreciate
and I
that.
understand why you're running for mayor.
Yeah.
It's a tough job, but
And you guys vote for him because we need people in our community that understands our community, just like he
Yes.
said at the beginning of the show.
Right.
Who better understands than the people that's in it? You have people that sit in these places that make decisions for us that are not good for us.
Right.
Let us make the decisions that's good for us. At least have some say so.
Right.
And I want to touch on something that you said. You had people to pour into you. Michael came to the program. He poured into people. I reach out to kids at the train station. I see 2 girls arguing. I'll just walk up to them and say, you're so pretty. You're too
Yes.
beautiful for this. You don't have to have a TV show or production company, a book author. You don't have to be the mayor. I had a pastor and I had a teacher in high school that poured into me. It's all in my book.
Right.
A regular person can say,
That's a great segue because I think that
It's the village. That's what makes
it
us the
does.
village.
And I actually, I talk about, in my own mayoral platform about building a culture of care, right?
Yeah.
Is that, we've over the years, the way that our culture has been structured, right? And even, the way that we think about community is different. Right. It's people are more individualistic. They kind of stay on their own corners. They don't
mind their business.
They
when
mind
they
their
should not.
business when they shouldn't. So I was campaigning and I was actually out on Dana Road. Very nice
I know where Dana
white,
Road is.
homogenous community. But what I appreciated, and it hit me almost like a slap in the face because I hadn't heard a parent do this since I was a kid, where there were a whole group of kids that were riding their bicycles down the street, right? And 2 kids weren't wearing their helmets. And she pretty much stepped right into the street and called them both out and said, "Where are your helmets?
Yeah.
Get home and get your helmets."
Yeah.
And it's just like it's that, even though those aren't my kids, but I know those kids. I know that and we're going to take care of each other.
That's right.
And it's beyond all of that too. It's like, we know that we have elderly folks in our East Side neighborhoods. Like it's a rapidly aging population, right? So, keeping tabs on our neighbors and figure, I was out tonight actually campaigning over at Tops Market, and, a gentleman's hanging out on the bench for about an hour while I'm sitting there talking to customers coming out. And I was like, "Brother, where are you waiting for a ride?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was waiting for a ride, but I don't think they're coming." And I was like, "Well, where do you live?" And he's like, "Northampton in Michigan." I'm like, "That's where I'm going." So I threw him on the golf cart and I took him home. But like just that,
Concern.
like trying to, our lives have become so hectic and busy and distracted that we just kind of lose sight of
what's important.
of what's important and how we
And
take
our
care of
children
each
are
other.
important.
Right.
They are our future.
And they
Right.
notice that most of the young people I deal with are basically saying they feel like they don't have a voice. They feel like they're not noticed. They are dismissed. And everything is punitive when it comes to them in school,
Definitely.
at their house. And it's like they authentically know whether you care or not. They can feel if you're genuine. And that's what
Right.
matters most to them.
Right.
And that's how they respect the
Right.
adults.
And that's exactly why and it has come up numerous times in all of our conversations. That's why these communities, your 48 program, your program on DOTE, the work that I did when I first came to town with Buffalo Youth Corps, and even my store, like people, my belief is, that the reason we see all the chaos that we see out there in the world, the school shootings, the depression, the anxiety, and all that, is because they're disconnected. We're more disconnected than we have ever been.
Yes.
And these programs create a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
A sense of a place where people feel like they do have that voice, that connection, that support, that person that is going to give them that tough love conversation when they need it. That person that's going to wonder where they're at when they don't show up that night, and is going to pick up the phone and say, where were you at tonight?
Right.
Like they are, they, even though they may lash out for a second, and I know and we all know because we've worked with these kids that they want that.
They do. They need that discipline and they want it. They crave it.
Yeah.
Especially if they're not getting it at home. Because
Right.
it means you notice. You
Right.
notice me.
And particularly when the needs of our communities are so great, when, our community has really been burdened by, decades in history of unjust incarceration from a lot of our black men in this community, right? That the urgency and the need for that community connection is even more important.
Absolutely, because unjustly, like you said, you take the black father out of the home, that leaves the mother, it's at times to be both parents,
Right.
meaning maybe two jobs, which leads the kids now to raise themselves, which
Yeah.
leads to bad decisions.
Right.
Again, none of these are bad people because
Right.
we know that, like you said, some decisions, we make and, we pay for them. But, we all know that's a worldwide conversation. It's a lot of unjust arrest or prison terms that women are serving, even women. And in the end, it just affects the children. So they're
Right.
they're the lost causes. They're the lost souls in this whole scenario.
Right.
So it takes people like us to come in and try and save them. Because sometimes moms burn out.
Right.
I just can't do it.
Right.
Sometimes mom just doesn't even want to face reality. Sometimes we just, the kids are just born to the wrong people. I don't know. That's between them and God, whatever the parent is the way that it is. But then you have people like us that are willing to step in. I have
Right.
4 children and a new grandson.
Yes,
But-
just in the last couple days. Congratulations.
Yes.
So, thank you. So I don't know why. I'm a grandma. I'm just too fine. But hey, that was God's choice too. But anyways, I never say, but it's just too much. I just
Right.
had like
That's
a group
right.
of girls at my house this weekend because you know what? It's 4 friends that my daughters have. The moms, we rotate. We don't allow our kids to go out. It's too dangerous,
Right.
and not that we think they're better
Right.
but it's just too dangerous. So we rotate weekends because, kids got to have fun. You can't shelter them. I learned that too.
Right.
Too much shelter, and then they don't learn what they need to learn,
Right.
to be effective adults in the world. And they get out there, they go to college, and they know nothing because they've been sheltered. So you got to find that gentle balance,
Right.
right?
And then that brings up, what my role is as a potential politician or elected official in this community is, we often, people say, well, you got to invest in, I say, or what I have been saying is we've got to invest in communities. And a lot of people don't really understand what that means. And what we're talking about right here is exactly what that means is, Yvette, has created that community resource. That's a community resource for six young girls.
Yeah.
Where they have a place.
That's it.
They have a mentor. They have someone that's got their back. That's
Safety.
someone that's going to question them when they're making bad decisions.
Someone that supports them that they can go and talk to.
Someone that's offering that unconditional support, even when, because young people will make bad decisions
Yes,
sometimes.
absolutely.
Just like old people do.
I mean, they're being influenced by their parents that make
Yeah.
bad decisions.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
So like that's what that's what it means to invest in neighborhoods, is these programs that offer that. And one of the initiatives that I've been talking about for darn too long, to be honest with you, because it came out of a program. I have a background in education. I've always worked with kids that were underemployed or been kicked out or thrown out of school, kids that were on the receiving end of those punitive educational kind of environments that we've created.
The one that nobody wants to deal with.
Right. If you make a mistake, instead of us saying, okay, what do you need?
Right.
How do we support you? How do we direct you? How do we redirect you? How do we, help you connect with a learning style that's more in line with what your skills are. I feel that when we got rid of a lot of vocational education in our schools is when we saw the dramatic increase in the dropout rate.
That's exactly what happened. And truancy officers, like, whatever happened? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
When I was in high school, they had
doing
truancy. It was like people would knock on the door, like, where is this kid?
Right.
It doesn't happen anymore.
But not only that, it wasn't, I was just telling the young people, there wasn't an option when I was in school to drop out. Like, our biggest, hardest, toughest decision was, were we going to stay in the city for college or were we going out of state? Because no one didn't even think about not going to college. You didn't think about, you skipped school, you would be in trouble, because every adult where you went would be like, why aren't you in school? What's your name? And I'm going to contact your parents. So you couldn't even skip as a kid. Where now it's like you could just not go to school and be home, and nobody is like dealing with this. So one of the things that stood out to me the most, even with both of us, I have a program that runs through Monday through Friday, and her program is Saturday and Sunday. So we got the full week covered. I don't know too many people that are going to give up their weekend, a Saturday and Sunday, to spend time with youth. Like that right there is like deeply enrooted and passionate, because we, as adults, we look forward to our weekend. That's our day of freedom.
And all self-funded.
Sacrificing that.
All self-funded.
Right.
Out of
pockets.
My husband and I self-fund. We have no grant. We have no community money. Everything that we do and put together, it's all self-funded.
That speaks volumes.
And I'm not bragging. I'm simply stating a fact. That, that's what it means to me. That's how important that is to me.
Right.
Even if it's just keeping 4 or 5 girls at my house for the weekend.
But I think
and
that also,
when crimes are committed the most, when kids can get into idle time, is the devil's playground.
But I also think it speaks to how we have to fill these gaps, because you're addressing 6 kids, or 4 or 5, 6 kids, and this and that, and I keep bringing this up, is that like there's a lot of young people out there that need these types of connections. And we say, well, why are young people stealing cars and breaking in and doing this? And, a lot of those are crimes of economics, right? Because these young people don't have jobs and opportunities, and it's, perpetual, poverty here in many parts of our community. But the other part of it is that, they just need a place, like
things to do.
One of the greatest models that I've seen in other cities are these clubhouse models where, it doesn't take a lot of resource. You have one, college age person or even a community person. You don't have to be college educated to be a good mentor. I've run into a lot of these young men on the streets that have jobs, and they know what this community needs in terms of young people, and they know what the community, the reason why it is the way that it is.
Absolutely.
Because of the lack of that kind of mentoring and support.
And resources.
Right. You have a clubhouse, you take one of these vacant houses and you clean it up and you clear it out and you make it nice and you make it comfortable. You put 10 couches in there and you have a young person that's there, and the teenagers can come and hang out.
That's what one of my attorney friends, he no longer works with me, but that's an idea that we had, because I said everything's just so hard.
Right.
And unfortunately, not to down talk or play anyone, unfortunately you got to be careful who you bring into your home.
That's
right.
Because I'm going to state something. Sometimes kids make bad choices, and sometimes we have bad people. So I can't, protecting my own children. I
Right.
can't invite all the kids that I don't know. I can't let everybody come to my address to do these programs.
Right.
So that's why we reach out. I have a good sister friend. Her name is Shy. She allows me to utilize her space for some of my programs. My husband works with cars, so if he's going to do something, the guy he works with, his name is Carl, and he's Delavan. They'll bring young guys in, and like you said, they're looking for money and food. They'll allow them to do stuff, mix the paint or scrub the car down or take the door off to get money for food.
Right.
It's all community. It's all community parenting
support, right.
and support.
Right.
So
But all of these things
that
point
idea you're saying is great.
They point to different models that we could shift and create. And it's low-hanging fruit, in my
Absolutely.
opinion. There are funds available through the state and through other programs, but other things we just need to prioritize.
That's it.
Right.
And we also have to take this conversation to our state leaders because, we're already, one way or another, we're gonna pay for this.
That's a
Yeah.
fact.
As a society, we're going to either be preventative, be proactive, help
Or
these.
you're going to be a victim.
Or you're
Because
gonna
the
be a
child or the
victim.
young man that you
Help.
dismiss and don't look at will
It's gonna,
date your
like you
daughter.
said, he's gonna find that money one way or the other.
Or he's going to come out to the suburbs and find your car. Take it.
So one way or the other, they're the idle mind, devil playground.
right.
That's where those narratives come from. But one thing I want to say about you, Michael, that I appreciate what you do in the community is when I started the Great 48, I knocked on school doors. I went to the Board of Education. I went to City Hall several times trying to get someone to listen to what I wanted to do to maybe help me, to guide me. I offered to speak in Buffalo Public Schools for free. I said, just, I can come in during lunch. You don't have to pay me. I can go to the East Ferry Detention Center. I wanted to go in and talk to those. They said, well, you got to have this. You got to have that. You got to have this credential.
Right.
They said, who are you coming as? What do you represent? I said, a girl from the East Side who grew up in these circumstances
Right.
and survived.
Right.
That's what I'm coming as. No one wanted to hear it,
Right.
so we created our own program.
Right.
But
And then
that's
you
why
wrote
we
the
need.
book, and then
Well, this has been a city of connections. It's,
Right.
But that's why
I've
I'm happy a candidate like you. I hope that you win. I pray that you win because until there's change, there will
Right.
not be change.
right. Yeah, I'll tell you when I first, and this is what I think a lot of people, they forget about because, when you keep bringing home this idea of investing in communities and investing in young people, they'll be like, oh, yeah. But there are these training programs over at Northland, and, there's lots of union apprenticeship programs, and, the kids start and they don't finish them or this or that. But the work that is most needed, right, is not the work that we're investing in.
Absolutely.
The work it's the hard work. It is
Hands-on.
it is what you're talking about, those life skills, that leadership development
Yeah, I don't wanna
focus,
go
that
to the-
community focus.
I don't want to go to the Northland Training Center if I don't have food to eat in the morning.
Right, exactly.
We
Or
got to
if you're
address
pushed
the
through
issues
school
and
you can't read and write, and you got to take
Right.
the testing because we refer youth over there.
but they
and
got to be
might-
able to pass the basic
And if
test.
they can't pass it, and you have a reading problem because
Right.
you've been pushed through school.
So it's like me
it doesn't
going
matter.
to the hospital to get my appendix out and they take out my liver.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, did you solve
Yeah.
the problem?
Right.
We have to address the correct problems. We have to start in the right points.
Right.
First.
And I'll tell you, the work that you're doing and the reason, I felt so strongly about bringing you and Carlonda and we're missing a gentleman tonight who was actually a snug outreach worker as well, is because this is the real work in the trenches that is transformative.
Yes.
Back in 2000, I helped found a school called the Shackleton School, and it was all focused on inner city kids that had dropped out, thrown out. It was a residential program. And for the first year, it was a year-long program, the kids did almost zero academics, even though we did real cool things. I mean, we'd pack up their clothes, we got in a school bus, we traveled all over the country.
Wow.
We went down to Arizona and spent time with the Navajo and the Hopi Indians. We slept in the desert and studied desert ecology, traveled along the Mexican border, and learned about social and political issues between, Mexico and the United States. And the kids visited maquiladoras, which are like sweatshops in Mexico, and saw how people lived there. So there was an academic focus, but the growth was personal. It was like, it was about kind of healing a lot of internal trauma,
Okay.
just about how they had been treated in their lives, their own sense of self-worth, their own, their own belief in their own capacity. Like, and, we talk a lot, and actually I had a young person that used to work with me back at Buffalo Reuse, and, I took her to a conference. We hosted this conference. We brought people from all over the Northeast, Tyree Guyton, this amazing artist from Detroit, and folks that were, but then we also had people from here in town. And I gave her a ride home after that conference, and she was like, her mind had just was like exploded. Because she said to me, she was like, I just had no idea things like this were happening in my own city. Like to just open a young person's eyes to the world when all they see really in their own lives is, what we see every day on the East Side, the blight, the homelessness, the neglect, and to see opportunity and to see like your life existing in a different situation, and just how transformative that is to you as a human being, and to think
Yes.
about what the possibilities are for your life and what your life can be in the context of having all these people that aren't going to give up on you.
That's
and,
right.
And that is such a huge transition, and it takes time.
It does.
You just don't push rewind on decades worth of neglect and harm.
It's fixed.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's fixed. So, like this program, this type of programming, like where we're saying, our real work is on, helping young people recognize their value,
Yeah.
helping them to see a vision for themselves beyond their current life reality, helping to support them and believe in them even when they don't believe in themselves. Like
Right.
that's the hard work.
Yes.
And none of those other programs, none of them matter
That's right.
until you have that foundation.
And when you work with the youth, you can also help transform the parents, because even though we're
Exactly.
working with the youth, I'm a part of MVP, Most Valuable Parents. And when you touch a young person's life to where they might have been acting up or maybe just disrespecting their parents or smoking and getting in trouble, and now you're going to court for them, you're advocating for them to get another chance with the judge, and you're pouring into them. Now that parent is like, okay, well, wait a minute, who are you? Because I see that you're vested in my child's life. Can you help me? Like
Right.
I'm having issues with getting a job. We don't have food at home, or we're behind on our rent. And now you're being able to talk to that parent to say, okay, well, these resources are available. And MVP has been the organization that is the resource for the parent piece. So now I get to help the youth, but I also get to work with the parents. And now the
Right.
parents, and that was full circle. And then that's when you realize that's what community is about. Like, we don't have to
That's
have any
right.
special
Amen.
education, degree, or trauma from ourselves. We just have to, like you said, a community of care and concern. And if I care and you care, well, that's a person who said, man, they cared about me and it helped me. Now let me help somebody
They'll
else.
go back and
we
reach
pay it
Exactly.
forward.
And it starts with the basis
Exactly.
of what you said. Our slogan for our program is change mindsets, change lives.
I like
It
that.
has to start with
All
that.
with your thoughts.
That's it.
Yes.
You have to know that you can do it.
And
you
I'm-
have
That's
to
right.
believe in yourself.
I'm actually working on CASO. The last time I was here, actually in this a radio show with Victoria Ross, who always says, be the change you want to see. I had lost my son, Darren, and I created CASO in honor of him. And that's coping against stressful situations openly, but using holistic therapy with young people to say, you don't need a pill or a potion. You have to change your mindset and
That's
your
it.
thoughts. So we use
Absolutely.
frequency music and beta waves and having conversation and communicating, getting to the deep part of what is it that you feel, why do you feel that, and let's change your thought process in that. So we can change your mindset and know that you can encourage yourself. You can be happy with life. You're human. You have emotions.
Yep.
You have losses and things to go through. But how do we deal with that? And what is the solution, and get them to continue forward? Well, then you change your mindset. You change the way a person thinks. You change the way they act and how they speak and everything, because we vibrate off of that.
Right. And then
and-
once,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go
And
ahead.
once you have that idea in your mind, like that is the power, right?
Yes.
I mean, that becomes almost an obsession. Like when you have that thought and when you realize the power and the impact of how your thoughts affect
Yes.
your behavior, your actions, your outlook, your perspective, like all of those things. And it's all reinforced by the people that you surround yourself with.
And I just want to play devil's advocate, just really quick to say to parents that are trying and their kid just,
Yes.
we have institutional correctional facilities. We all know that they're misused, but they're also necessary. It is some kids that just they have to go, they have to, they have to learn the hard way. My husband will tell you, he openly tell you, he was one of those kids. You have to learn the hard way, right? But I want those parents out there who are struggling with kids like that, like, it's okay sometimes to let the system, I would rather them go be corrected in the system than die in the streets.
That's
right.
So if you have a kid that's just on the wrong path, you're trying, like, don't beat yourself up about it.
That's
know,
right.
I have seen so many young boys that the parents are loving, they're caring. I had one guy, me and the attorney I was talking about, the one to build the program. That guy sat in our face. He said, I was just forced to do that. I was hanging with the wrong people, and I'm like, hey, come to my program this weekend. We're teaching this and teaching that. And the grandmother said, he ain't gonna come. And I said, no. I said, let's give him a chance. She called me that afternoon and said he carjacked somebody.
Wow.
She said, but I appreciate you trying, But so I just felt so bad for her. You had the mother was like, I'm done with him. The grandmother's like, I'll take him. And so even though we are this village, it's some kids.
Yes,
and
right.
that's what I really want to ultimately get to with the Great 48. I want to actually get to another part of that teaches the kids. Sign them over to me for about 5-6 weeks. We don't want them to go to prison. We just
Right.
want to teach them. Construct kind of like the military without going to the military. So that is my ultimate goal with my program, to help those kids as well, because there's some kids that are just hard-headed.
That's
Yep,
right.
it's
And we
true.
near the Skilled Straight program.
Yeah, so we don't want them to go to
prison.
prison. We don't want
No.
them to go become statistics, but
Right.
they still need discipline. So we
right.
have to deal with that side of it too. I don't want to come to everybody's a victim. Everybody's not a victim.
Well, and the other thing is that I feel like, you have to also, you can't force somebody's hand.
No.
So, what I've learned over time is that I'm not going anywhere. There are kids that I've known here in Buffalo for 19, 20 years, and they still have my cell phone number. And they've been through the system, they've been incarcerated, and they call me when they get out.
Aw.
And they'll even say, the things you said were right, but now I'm hearing it.
That's right.
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 And
They don't
I
forget
think
it.
that's but we have to not forget it either. Right.
Right.
Because it's that unconditional aspect, right? That I'm just going to keep giving.
Right.
I'm just going to keep caring.
That's right.
Yes.
I'm going to still be having the table here and inviting you to it.
Right.
And if and when you're ready to join, come, we've got a place for you.
And you know what
Like
you just
that's
described?
that's community.
Consistency.
Right.
Consistency. Our young people are looking for someone to consistently care about them and be in
And
their
be
lives.
there.
And I use what's just called consistent messaging. I've been saying the same thing for you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
That's right.
And it's like the same message. I care about you. I see good in you, and I know that you can win.
Right.
And just being consistent. But I check them for their language.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't curse around me. You're going to respect me, and you're going to respect what I say and do. But I'm also going to live what I'm asking you. I would never ask somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do myself, and I would never tell somebody not to do something that I don't do myself. So you're not going to see me cursing and acting erratic out of emotions, and I'm going to expect the same respect out of you.
Right.
And it works, and they respect it, they listen, and they appreciate it.
But while we can't save them all, it goes back to what Michael said when he was campaigning on the golf cart in Milton Park.
Right.
If you change one kid's life,
Right.
that's what we're not going to be able to say. But if you change
save them.
one kid at a time, one kid a day, we're still making a difference.
Right.
Because that one kid is going to tell the other kid, like, you can go
Oh my
talk to these
God,
people.
yes.
You can go
Right.
talk to Mike again. He'll lead you.
They the recruitment, right?
Yeah,
They bring all the kids.
We're not going to save everyone. I mean, we got to just be real. But if we do one a day, two a day,
Yes.
then I feel one a month.
Right.
I feel like I've accomplished something.
Right. Well, and I think that your stories also,
amazing.
which I think is really, really important, is that, we have to train other adults
Yes.
too to be part of this community.
Yes.
Because I think that it's really easy, for us to judge and get angry and get frustrated with the state of young people today. But, but we own that.
Right.
Right.
You know, we are in the lead here. We are the leaders and the people that are making the decisions about how we invest and choose to support or not to choose. You know, we see that, you know, our schools aren't serving all kids, and what are we doing about it?
Right.
You know, we see that there's young people on the streets, but what are we doing about it?
Right.
So our role, and you know, a big part of why we're doing this tonight, you know, in my mind, is to inspire other people to take this active role.
Be doers, right?
Like all it involves, right, is caring. If you care,
Yes.
and you know that there are kids on your street, you know, or you know, in your neighborhood somewhere that are creating mayhem, that doesn't mean that you should necessarily have to directly intervene, but maybe you drop a flyer for a youth program in their mailbox, or
Right.
or maybe you have a conversation with their parent and say, hey, you know, I've noticed these things and I'm really concerned about
Right.
and is there something I can do to help? Because
conversate with
maybe
them.
they're struggling too.
That's
so
right.
like that's what, you know, a culture of care means to
Culture
me.
of care.
Like everybody on the street knows, right? If there's a woman that's experiencing domestic violence on the street, it's no mystery.
That's
Right.
right.
They see that young woman and they hear the hollering coming from the house. They see the kids leave
The bruises.
You know, so
Right.
they know what's going on. We also know when there's young people that are out creating mayhem, right?
Yeah.
So, but you know, we have a couple options. We call 311 and complain about it, or we
Or
we
911 and
or
complain about
911
it.
at some point if we have to, if it escalates and gets out of control, or we can try to,
Have
which
a
is I think
conversation.
what this whole focus on investing in communities is really about how we prevent that and how
Yes.
we intervene in ways that are caring and supportive and unconditionally loving. Is that, you know, we know that the kids today have it tough.
Yes.
So what are we going to do to support them, and how are we going to, as a community, build a community of people that are caring?
Well, I think
You know?
you nailed it when you said a culture of care. Like intervention and engagement is the heart of what we do as the frontline organizations, and that's why we're so effective. Because you know, I don't need nobody to tell me. First of all, you got to be fearless. You cannot be scared of these kids. And
Right.
a lot of times, you know, we live in America where there's a culture of violence is acceptable, and we're immune to it, to where we're now fearful. And I'm like, if I'm somewhere and I see two kids looking at each other the wrong way, you already can feel the energy of it is negative. Why don't you go and say, man, what's the problem? And just talk to them about anything.
That's what I said about the
or
girls in the
compliment
train
a kid
station.
about,
Right.
you know, you look, I love the way your hair is. And oh, thank you. You just shifted
the focus.
that energy that could have prevented a fight.
Right.
And if you see two people arguing, yeah, you do might want to go in and intervene and say, okay, hey guys, come on, you know, what's going on here and talk. Because most of the time, that person don't even want to fight. You know, I
Right.
worked in Riverside for 2 years, and you know, we did the lunchrooms, the cafeterias, and it was just like going around to the kids and just talking to them. They will tell you everything. You know, I got a problem with such and such, miss. She was looking at me like this,
Right,
and she was
right.
trying to talk to my dude. And you'd be like, now I'm giving an opportunity to talk to her, but at the same time, I'm preventing her from getting up and punching that girl in the face and it be a fight.
Right.
But it started with communication. We have
Right.
to get back to communicating with each other and recognizing ourselves. You have people that don't even talk to their next door neighbor.
Right.
How
That's
do you live around somebody and you don't communicate, but soon as somebody break into your house, now you want to go and ask them, did you see
Right,
what happened?
right,
Well,
right.
that wouldn't have happened, because if y'all was communicating in the first place, they would have
would've been
said,
watching
hey,
the
somebody's
house.
outside walking around your house and called you. We have to get back to the bare basics of being
Right.
human. And we have these devices, these phones that we are into like glue all day. And we're getting 33,000 messages of violence and
Right.
destruction that's going into our subconscious. But that community of care, that culture of love and concern, that's what we have to get back to. And it starts like what we're doing, just
Right.
having simple conversations.
Right.
You expressing your opinion, you stating how you feel, and I listen with both ears attentively and then respond and letting that resonate in our spirits. That's what our young people are doing. They're
Right.
communicating and they're creating their own culture. And as adults, we just stand back and letting
Right.
them do it and not intervene with love.
Right.
I mean, but this is why we
And
have
not
the
even
problems we have.
and not even not intervening. I think that one of the most destructive things that we as adults, all right, get criticized of by the young people is by making judgments.
Oh
Yes.
my God.
You know,
Let's not
it's
even go
about
there.
the judgment, is about, we make assumptions about who they are or what they're about
Right.
based on how they look,
How they
and
dress.
how they dress, how many
Talk.
tattoos they have, how they wear their pants, whatever it happens to be. And I think that, the reason why we are able to connect with young people in a different way, is because we don't make those judgments. And I think that is the challenge to all of us. And I have to even call myself out
That's
every
the
once
God
in a
in me.
while.
Well,
God doesn't
I
allow
have to
me
say
to.
that's a big aspect of my program, so I do want to address that. I teach the kids who we are.
Right.
Yeah.
We were.
Right.
I showed them photographs in the 1930s and 40s where families wouldn't come out unless they were fully dressed to go
Right.
to the grocery
Right.
store.
Right.
So when I do see a kid's pants
not in
hanging,
bonnets.
yeah, not in bonnets and pajamas.
Right.
And I teach the young ladies like this is what we look like. This is who we are. And not in a judgmental way, you show them how beautiful they can
Right.
be.
Yes.
Right.
And some of these kids are really good-looking kids, but you wouldn't know it from the way that they carry themselves.
Right.
So I teach them we are kings and queens.
Yep.
That's right.
And that
We are a
is
reflection.
not. We're a reflection of our
How we
whole
get that.
community, our
Yep.
whole neighborhood.
Right.
You know.
right.
So I don't judge them, but I do tell them that we are better than that.
Right.
And
I also-
some of them are very receptive of it, and some of them like, oh, well, this is what I'm doing. Well, then you got to let them have it. That still doesn't stop me from trying to help you.
Right.
I just want to start with you're a queen or you're a king, and you should pull your pants up and you should take that bonnet off, and you got to address it. We can't, like you just said, you can't be too gentle.
No,
you know?
no. And I
it
think
has
that
to be
that
a level.
comes,
Yeah.
that comes when you've established a level of trust with them, because
Absolutely.
and rapport, because guys, my employees, whatever, they'd come up and be like, well, you don't understand, like that nobody respects me. And I was like, listen,
Or respect yourself
I was
first.
like, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you communicate how you care for yourself, the way that you dress, that communicates what you're about. So I know you. I love you. I think you're great. But if you want to be taken seriously by more people, you got to look the part.
That's right.
If you want that job, you got to look the part.
That's
Like
right.
I wear a suit every day now. I don't want to wear a suit.
You're looking sort of like a politician there, Michael.
My daughter tells me, she's like, Dad, I think it's a little disingenuous for you to be wearing a suit and not your bandana, because people won't even
Oh my
recognize it.
God, that is why you look so different. You're right. Your
I
bandana.
always, for the last 20 years, I have a bandana
Did.
everywhere I go.
Blue at that.
But the part of it is that, like, there are a good number of people in our community that won't take you seriously
If you're wearing a
running-
bandana.
If you're wearing a bandana,
Even though you're
or
a
if
good
you're wearing
guy,
jeans and shirt.
That is
Same
something.
Michael for 20 years since
Right.
I've been in
Same
Buffalo.
Michael.
But you're
But-
right. It's looking the part.
You got to look the part. So
I can't tell a girl to take off a bonnet with the bonnet on my
Oh,
head.
I'd be like Bonnie Gang. I
Right.
can't stand it.
You
Right.
can't. I can't do that.
Right.
And I have a kid. Sometimes that girl, it drives me crazy. And I said, "Can you think about your mother being a community activist, and they see you at Target with she's like, Mom,
Sir.
please." So my own daughter, it's like, oh Lord, but it's not who she is, but. The next person will look at her
And it's the
think,
trend
and
of the
what,
culture,
and
what
yeah,
they
what would
are
they
in.
think?
Right.
What will they think? But again, you can't prejudge people.
Right.
My daughter's
Right.
actually very beautiful, but she wants to wear a bonnet some days. But I just tell her it's not culture.
Right. Right.
But it is what it is. But I think that when you know someone personally, we don't look at them that way.
Right.
But I think what you're doing is very important. You got the bigger picture.
Right.
It's how and unfortunately, people do tend to judge before they get to know you.
Yeah.
So it's
And
our appearance is
particularly-
very important.
And particularly when we're already also dealing with the cultural bias.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
The racism, the
Absolutely.
stigma of the East Side and of black kids and black men in particular. Like, those two young men that I rolled up on Liddell Street. They were so taken back that I just walked up to them and spoke to them like normal people, because they were like, most people would just be like making all these assumptions about us.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just have this kind of.
I'm not most people.
I'm not most people. I care about people. So like that's what we're modeling, and I think that we're down to about 3 minutes left here tonight. in the show. I know the time goes fast.
I know,
but,
right?
So I know this is the first show, but it's a very important election. So why don't you spend these few minutes?
Well, let me just, I will talk just very briefly about how this all connects back to my campaign, which is, for me, the way that, the vision that I have for Buffalo is one that, I'm a problem solver. So thinking about how we connect the dots. So we have communities that are, that have experienced a lot of divestment, and that are blighted, and where there's concentrated poverty and this and that, and vacant lots, and there's streets without one tree on the whole street, and illegal dumping and all this. So you have all of this physical environment that is struggling, particularly on the east side, but also in Riverside and parts of South Buffalo too. I was down there, and I was shocked by some of the communities and neighborhoods that I rolled through. And then you have all of these young people that, when I got to Buffalo, the dropout rate was literally 50%. So you're like, well, where did all those kids go?
Right.
Some of them went to the training programs, and some might even have gone to college or got jobs, but a lot of them went to the streets.
Absolutely.
So my initiative was called City Action Corps. I've been trying to fund it. I almost had it funded in 2009 by the U.S. Conference of Mayors. All I needed was a letter of support from Byron, and I didn't get it, but that's a story for a different day. The point is that City Action Corps is a year-long program that's specifically crafted around this culture of care, like providing life skills and mentoring and training, all of this stuff that helps young people to feel a sense of purpose, feel valued, feel respected, feel like they have what they need to take the next step in their lives. And then it comes in the context of a year-long program that also offers an on-the-job training component. So they work 3 days doing work directly in the neighborhoods. My vision is to plant 100,000 trees on the east side of Buffalo in the next 10 years. And the young people will do that. They'll maintain our largest urban nursery where we're growing perennials and trees and shrubs to regreen our whole city. They will be the main worker bees that are going to help create the physical transformation while they're also transforming their own lives. And then hopefully with the love and support of the Carlandas and the Yvettes and the Kareems and all of the young mentors that we recruit from the neighborhood, that they're able to, after a year, make a transition to whatever that next stage in their lives is, armed with self-confidence and belief and educational experience and a few bucks in the bank so they can go out and take, their partner out on a date or buy a new pair of kicks, whatever they want, a crispy T-shirt, I don't care. But that is the community that we create, and it's something that I see in every city that I go to. I see lots of technical training programs. I see union apprenticeship programs. I see job programs, and everybody says the same thing. We can't find. Excuse me. We can't find the young people that we need to fill these work. Well, why? Because they're out on the street.
Yeah. You gotta be the change you want to see.
Right. So this is our first episode.
5 seconds.
I appreciate you all being here. Michael Gaynor for mayor.com. Follow us. Thank you, Carlanda.
Peace
Thank
and
you,
love.
Yvette. Peace, love.
Peace and love.
November 4th.
Go Bells. Casso.
Thank you, Richard.
I know that's what happens when we start talking an hour straight.